When dismissive avoidants grow older, the truth they can't escape. Dismissive avoidant spends their life running, not literally but emotionally. They spend decades mastering the art of distance, wearing a mask of independence that says, "I don't need anyone." In their youth, this defense mechanism almost works. They're seen as mysterious, self-sufficient, maybe even strong. People admire them for their independence and calm demeanor. They may appear cool-headed in relationships, unbothered by drama, and emotionally steady. But behind that surface lies a deep discomfort with vulnerability. In their younger years, they can get away with disappearing into work, hobbies, or solitude. Their attractiveness or charm might help them escape consequences. But here's the truth. As dismissive avoidants age, the walls they built start to feel less like protection and more like a prison. At some point, age strips away the distractions they've used to avoid emotional intimacy. Career accolades fade, friends move away, parents pass on, and physical vitality begins to wane. The distractions that used to make emotional distance tolerable begin to crumble. Aging for a dismissive avoidant can feel like standing in an empty room where all their defenses echo back at them. For the first time, they may feel the weight of loneliness pressing in, something they've spent their whole life denying they needed to avoid. They begin to realize that needing no one has a cost. There is no one there to truly know them, no one to fully understand their soul because they never allowed anyone to see it. That awareness can creep up slowly or hit them suddenly, but when it does, it's powerful. This stage of life exposes a harsh reality. Relationships are a kind of emotional savings account. If you invest in love, connection, and trust over time, you build wealth in the form of closeness and companionship. But if you avoid intimacy for decades, the account is empty when you need it most. Many dismissive avoidants don't notice this deficit until they're older because they've always been able to survive alone. But survival and living are two different things. In aging, survival starts to feel hollow. Nights feel longer. The quiet they once treasured becomes oppressive. They may have acquaintances, but few true friends, and even fewer deeply intimate relationships. That's when regret often appears. Regret for pushing people away, for not being emotionally open when they had the chance. What's fascinating is that dismissive avoidants rarely see themselves as lonely until this stage of life because they've spent years convincing themselves they're happier alone. That belief can be deeply ingrained, even into their 60s or 70s. They've been rewarded for independence, for never needing anyone. But aging forces a reckoning. Physical limitations can make them realize they can't always handle everything alone. Illness or accidents reveal just how much they need support, even if they hate admitting it. And here's the emotional twist. The very vulnerability they avoided for years becomes the thing they crave most. Suddenly they want companionship, understanding, and softness. But they may lack the emotional skills to get it. Some dismissive avoidants, however, double down on their independence as they age. Instead of opening up, they retreat further, becoming stoic, grumpy, or overly self-reliant. They might convince themselves they don't need help even when it's clear they do. This can lead to isolation, bitterness, and difficulty forming bonds even when they want them. Others take the opposite path. They finally crack open emotionally. They may have a life-altering moment, losing a partner, facing mortality, or going through an illness that forces them to reevaluate everything. Suddenly, they start expressing feelings they've suppressed for decades. These individuals often say they wish they'd allowed themselves to love more openly earlier in life. It's heartbreaking but also inspiring because change is still possible, even after years of emotional distance. As dismissive avoidants age, relationships with their adult children can reveal their emotional patterns. A dismissive parent often raises children who either crave closeness or mirror their emotional detachment. Later in life, they might notice their children don't feel emotionally close to them, even if they're physically present. This can be a painful realization. Many older dismissive avoidants don't understand why their children keep a certain distance or struggle to share feelings, but it's often a reflection of the emotional environment they grew up in. For some dismissive parents, this becomes a motivator to finally try opening up, to mend bonds they never nurtured. For others, it reinforces their belief that relationships are complicated and disappointing, leading them to retreat further. Romantic relationships also shift as avoidance age. In younger years, dismissive avoidants often hold the power because they're less emotionally invested, creating a push-pull dynamic that keeps partners chasing them. But in older age, that power often disappears. People become less willing to chase, and romantic partners may leave or emotionally withdraw. Suddenly, the dismissive person finds themselves alone, not by choice, but because their patterns pushed people away. This loss can be sobering. It's one of the biggest wake-up calls for aging avoidance, realizing that emotional games or walls have lasting consequences. However, there is hope in this stage of life. Aging can be a catalyst for transformation. Some dismissive avoidants finally let their guard down because they're tired of carrying emotional armor. They begin to seek depth instead of safety, realizing that connection is worth the risk of vulnerability. For these individuals, late-life relationships can be some of the most fulfilling they've ever had. They may develop new friendships, reconcile with family, or enter deeply meaningful romantic partnerships. The emotional growth they avoided in their 20s and 30s can finally emerge in their 60s and 70s. This shift often brings a kind of peace they've been unconsciously longing for their entire lives. Interestingly, aging forces dismissive avoidance to confront mortality in a way that makes emotional intimacy more appealing. Knowing time is limited changes their perspective. Many begin to value love and connection more than control or independence. The thought of leaving this world without deeply knowing anyone, or being truly known, can stir a desire for change. This realization can lead to beautiful, late-in-life healing. Some older avoidants even become surprisingly affectionate grandparents or supportive friends, proving that growth is always possible, no matter how entrenched someone's patterns seem. But here's the key. This change doesn't happen automatically. Many dismissive avoidants go through life never confronting their fears, choosing the safety of emotional distance over connection. These individuals may experience profound loneliness as they age, feeling invisible or irrelevant because they never allowed others to truly see them. Aging for them becomes a slow erosion of their carefully constructed world. Without relationships to ground them, they can feel disconnected and fearful in ways they never expected. That's why this topic matters. It's a wake-up call, not just for avoidance, but for anyone avoiding vulnerability. If you're someone who identifies with dismissive tendencies, the best time to change is now, not in old age when the consequences hit harder. Emotional growth is like saving money. The earlier you start, the richer your life becomes. But if you're already older and see yourself in this story, there's still time to rewrite your narrative. Vulnerability may feel terrifying, but it's also liberating. Opening up, even in small ways, can create bonds that make your later years meaningful and full of connection. You don't have to spend your older years trapped behind the walls you built. For those who love a dismissive avoidant, understanding their aging process is crucial. Many avoidants secretly long for closeness, but don't know how to express it. As they age, their need for love grows, even if they don't show it. Approaching them with patience and understanding can help them feel safe enough to let you in. At the same time, it's important to set boundaries and not lose yourself trying to save them. They need to do their own emotional work, but your empathy can play a role in helping them take that leap. Ultimately, the aging process for dismissive avoidance is both tragic and hopeful. Tragic because they often spend decades avoiding the very thing that makes life rich, deep connection. Hopeful because aging can finally crack the armor they've worn for so long, giving them one last chance to embrace vulnerability. The choice is theirs. Cling to independence at the cost of intimacy, or soften and open up to love. For those brave enough to choose openness, old age can be a time of emotional redemption, a season of warmth, closeness, and genuine relationships they never thought possible.